So I got pulled over and the cop asked to see my license. I was like, oh, I don't have my license. He was like, you don't have your license? I was like, no, I have my license. And he was like, you just said you don't have your license. I was like, I don't. He was like, you're driving without a license? I was like, no, I have my license. And he was like, you just said you don't. And I was like, I have my license, but I don't have my license. And he was like, I can give you a ticket because I don't know who you are. And I was like, who would you write it to? He was like, I'd write it to you. And I was like, but you don't know who I am. And he was like, that's why I'm writing you the ticket. And I was like, so you know who I am? He was like, how can I write you a ticket for not knowing who you are when I know who you are? And I was like, if you know who I am, how can you write me a ticket for not knowing who I am? So my dentist said I have a cavity and need a filling or else the hole will get bigger. I was like, so do you have to drill? He was like, yes, to do a filling, we'll have to make the hole bigger. I was like, so what's the point of the filling? He was like, to stop the hole from getting bigger. I was like, so then why are you making the hole bigger? He was like, to do the filling. I was like, but the point of the filling is to stop the hole from getting bigger. He was like, we have to make the hole bigger to stop the hole from getting bigger. I was like, how are you gonna stop the hole from getting bigger by making the hole bigger? So I used to be a waiter and someone forgot to leave me a tip, so I went to follow them. My manager was like, where are you going? I was like, they didn't tip. He was like, you can't chase customers that didn't tip. I was like, I have to chase customers that didn't pay the bill. He was like, yeah, that's your job. I was like, well, I get paid in tips. He was like, if you do it again, you're fired. I was like, I would just file for unemployment. He was like, oh, so you could be getting paid and not working? I was like, yeah, it's probably better than working and not getting paid. So where I live in New Jersey, they just passed a rule that if you're not wearing a face mask, you can't go inside of stores. I don't have a face mask, so I went to go buy one at the store. They were like, you don't have a face mask? And I was like, no, I'm here to buy one. And they were like, we can't let you in the store if you don't have a face mask. And I was like, well, I can't get a face mask if you don't let me in the store. And they were like, if you had a face mask, we could let you in the store. And I was like, if you let me in the store, I could have a face mask. And they were like, how could we let you in the store if you don't have a face mask? I was like, how can I get a face mask when you don't let me in the store? And they were like, why are you being so difficult? I'm like, why are you being so difficult? Running late picking my girlfriend up from work, so she called me and asked me how many more minutes. I was like, a few. She was like, did you just say F you? I was like, yeah, a few. And she was like, okay, F you. And I was like, see you in a few. And she was like, don't pick me up. And I was like, you can't wait a few minutes? F you. And she was like, oh, you said F you. And I was like, yeah, I said F you. And she was like, no, I thought you said F you. And I was like, I did say F you. And she was like, no, not F you, F you. And I was like, oh, you said F you. And she was like, no, I said F you. So I went to a restaurant and I asked for a table outside, and the host was like, well, there's no tables inside. And I was like, yeah, I don't want a table inside. And he was like, well, you wouldn't be able to get one if you wanted a table inside. And I was like, I didn't ask for a table inside. And he was like, but why did you say you want a table outside? I was like, because I want a table outside. And he was like, but that's all there is. And I was like, so why are you talking about a table inside? So a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt from a cop who was on a motorcycle. I was like, were you wearing a seatbelt? He was like, no, I'm on a motorcycle. I was like, well, what if I was on a motorcycle? He was like, well, then you wouldn't have to be wearing a seatbelt. I was like, so I'm getting a ticket because my car isn't a motorcycle? He was like, no, you're getting a ticket because you weren't wearing a seatbelt. I was like, you just said if my car was a motorcycle, I wouldn't have to be wearing a seatbelt, so I wouldn't be getting a ticket.